there, and welcome to another episode of Hot Off the List. I'm Mr. Jonathan, and I'm here with Miss Michelle. And today we have a special guest. Jenny Torres Sanchez is a full-time writer and former English teacher. She was born in Brooklyn, New York, but has lived on the border of two worlds her whole life. She lives in Orlando, Florida, with her husband and children. Her books include Because of the Sun, The Fall of Innocence, Death Dickinson, and the Demented Life of Frenchie Garcia, among others. Today, we're talking about We Are Not From Here, which tells of the perilous journey of Chico, Pulga, and Pequeña, three teens who are forced to flee Guatemala, risking their lives on a journey to what they hope will be a better life in a new country. Hi, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We're so glad you're here, Jenny. So this book is on the Florida Teens Read list for this year, which is pretty exciting to be nominated for a list in your own state. But I also know that you've received quite a few honors for this book, including the Pura Belpré honor award. Can you tell us what that feels like to find out that that this book and your writing is getting such recognition?
It's been amazing. It's been such a I wasn't expecting it, you know. This is my fifth book, and it was just the reception to this book and people opening their hearts to this book has meant so much to me. In particular, it being on the Florida Teens Read list because, you know, I live in Florida, I taught in Florida, and knowing that this book is being shared in schools and with students has meant the world to me. And then, of course, the Pura Belpré honor has been just fantastic, you know, to have it recognized within our community, you know, the Latinx community, as a book that can really make an impression and move and say something about our community, you know, has been really satisfying and amazing.
I think it says so much. I feel like this book is one that you're not going to be able to leave behind once you read it. It like gnaws at you to do something. So I love that. And I wanted to ask you, I read in an interview how you came to this story, but I'd love for you to share that with our students and librarians and teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I feel like this book kind of came at me at all these different angles, you know, definitely from knowing what was going on at our southern border, from hearing the news and that being, you know, something that was always on my mind and something that I think my mind was just kind of like working on and thinking and cycling through and, you know, being really moved by. So definitely the current events that were happening and continue to happen now with children at the US southern border. But also, you know, Pulga just kind of showed up. He just kind of came to me. And that's what happens when I write books. The characters show up and they just kind of hang out with me until I get to know their story. And Pulga, the very first time he showed up, I saw him on top of La Bestia. I saw him on top of the train, and I saw him kind of crouched with his little arms around his knees, you know, as he's riding on this train. And I knew that something was going on with him. I knew that he had a story of how he got here. And I knew that he was, you know, traumatized and he was going through a really difficult time and he was running from danger. And the first thing that I heard him say was, I feel like a small flea on a beast of a train. And flea in Spanish is pulga. That's what it means. And so that's actually where I got his name. That's when I first heard his voice. That's the moment the story really started for me. You know, definitely with what's happening in the news, but the story itself, Pulga's story and Pequeña's story and Chico's story happened in that moment when he showed up and I saw him on top of that train.
Was the story always intended to be from two perspectives? As it's told from both Pequeña's and Pulga's perspectives?
Yeah, at the beginning, actually, it had the perspective of four children, 4 teens who were going on this journey. And it actually included more voices. I was putting vignettes in there of the people that they meet along the way. And I felt this responsibility to include like every voice that I possibly could, because there are so many different stories on a journey like this. And I felt like, oh, I want to include this. I want to include this. I want to portray this. I want people to know about this. I want people to hear from this person. But it really, it was becoming too much. And I thought, and my editor thought, actually, she's the one who said, we need to just kind of bring this down to maybe just these two characters because their voices are emerging as, the more powerful ones. And let's keep it focused on them so that the reader is kind of like brought into this story just more pointedly instead of kind of all over the place. And so at the beginning, it started with 4 characters, and Chico actually had a narrative of his own at the beginning of when I started writing this, but I don't want to give any spoilers. So he had a voice of his own, and then there was another character actually named Daniel that I really wanted to include, but he kind of came in too late in the story because, the Chico, Pulga, and Pequeña kind of meet him a little later on. And so then it didn't feel like he had enough space in the book. So we just kind of like, moved his voice out of there. And then it came down to Pulga and Pequeña.
It definitely feels like a very controlled, focused novel for sure. So I think that definitely worked. I wanted to ask, a lot of authors shy away when they're writing for a younger audience from violence, but your story is delivered really unfiltered. And I was wondering, what do you think that says about the story and the topic you're dealing with? And what makes you brave enough to present a story like this unfiltered without feeling that kids can't handle this level of reality?
Yeah, I think with a story like this, you have to be honest. There's no other choice. You have to tell the truth of what's happening, what migrant children and migrant teens are going through, what unaccompanied minors have faced. Because if you don't tell that truth, then it does a real disservice and a dishonor to their story. These are people's realities. And for me to come and present it through rose-tinted glasses or, through this very happy kind of place, it's unrealistic, and it doesn't do what it is that I set out to do, which is for people to understand the full story and unfiltered, and that includes being honest about violence and being honest about some of the brutality that they face. And, as a former English teacher, I've taught, teenagers a lot. And I find that they don't have a problem with being honest, and they don't have a problem with discussing tough topics. Sometimes adults do. It's adults who are uncomfortable about discussing those things and having those discussions. But teenagers are really open-minded, and they're very eager to discuss the things that they see in the world. And so with all my books, I've never felt that it's a problem to be very honest about things. I do think that because I'm writing for young adults, I want to balance that with some hope. And I try to include that in my books as well, even as I'm being honest about the darker things and the brutal things. I also try to infuse a lot of beauty and a lot of love and a lot of friendship and camaraderie. So I hope that those things come across in the book and allow me to be honest with teenagers about how the world can be really hard, but the world can also be really beautiful.
The brutality in the novel is very present, but I think what you say is so true, because the connection between the 3 main characters is very strong and beautiful.
Thank you.
And I love the respect that you're giving young adults and how you're honoring the fact that they definitely don't shy away from hard topics, and they want to know more. And we, as the adults in their lives, need to make sure that we give that to them in honest, great ways where they can learn about the world. I really appreciate that, because I think too often people want to shelter And I think our kids know more than we do in
They do.
so many instances. And so it's great that they have a book like this where they can really learn. I mean, it was eye-opening for me. The end of the book made me want to start doing research and made me want to start talking to people about what was happening. And I appreciated the resources at the end of the book that, students and teachers and people who read the book can start investigating and helping where they can. I love that.
Thank you. And that was definitely my hope, is that, when readers finish the book and they, we are all at the end of Pulga and Pequeña and Chico's journey, that it propels the reader to go out and be like, okay, well, how can I contribute to helping, in these situations? And so it was really important for me to include some resources and some organizations that students and readers and teachers and librarians can look into and see how they can, offer some help. None of us can solve a whole big, huge problem, right? But if you have everybody contributing a little bit, then it certainly helps it helps things. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what would you like young people to know about the plight of migrants that are coming to the U.S. across our southern borders?
I just want them to know the truth, and to know it in a deeper way than you might get, looking through Twitter or looking on the news or reading an article, and on an emotional level to understand what migrant children and migrants have gone through. It's a call for empathy and a call for understanding. And I hope that that's what readers take away with them, and a call for change.
I think presenting individual stories like this is a really great way to affect change, because they show that, like, the difference when kids or even adults hear like, oh, X amount of people were affected by this, it doesn't register because there's not an emotional connection. So you can say 50,000 or 100,000, but there's no, like, the increase in numbers doesn't mean that you feel more. Whereas things like when journalists publish photos of people trying to migrate who have been in accidents, that gets more action. Or when individual people's stories go viral, that gets more traction, and people start to emotionally connect to the plight of other people, because without those emotional connections, it's just numbers.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I don't want people to just be okay with, are the numbers. Behind each one of those numbers is a story, and there are thousands of migrant children who have gone through really unimaginable circumstances and journeys. And here in this book, I present to you just three. So imagine if this is just three, all the other stories that are out there of migrant children who are going through something similar that Pulga, Pequeña, and Chico have gone through. And I hope that is eye-opening in itself to readers, like, wow, this is just three stories and there are so many more out there. And this is something that we should do something about and try to help in any way that we can.
Well, sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. We do that a lot. I apologize. The research says that students who read fiction are more compassionate adults because they learn what other people go through. Then they can transfer that into their lives. And so I think this is a wonderful place where, people read that story and can find, can begin to embrace that compassion for what's happening at our southern borders. I just can't say enough good things about it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That was what always spoke to me as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, are these stories, these fictional stories that really do have always revealed to me the truth of what goes on in our world and what people feel and the human experience. And so that's what I wanted to bring forth in this book. And I think you're right. I think that those stories and characters are things that readers really relate to and understand, and have these relationships with these characters. They become friends, they become families, they become this other version of yourself that you see in the book. So yeah,
I could talk about this book and this topic with you and pick your brain all day. I don't want to monopolize your time. So I'm going to skip ahead to our last question.
Sure.
And then we were going to play a little game with you. But my
Okay.
last question is, if you could suggest 3 books for teens. They can be current books. They can be books that you read as a teen that really affected you, or books by people that you admire or know personally. What would you suggest?
Oh, that is so hard. And of course, like your brain goes completely blank, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first one is it's not a book, it's a short story, and it's because it has played such a huge role in my life in becoming a writer. This story was a story that I read when I was in 6th grade. It's All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury, and it's one of the reasons that I write the type of stories that I write. In that story, you might say it's very dark. You might say, you know, at the end, like it's not this happy ending, but it was the first story that spoke to me as being very truthful to children and to teenagers. It's the first time that I thought, wow, I see an adult not trying to lie to me, but trying to tell me the truth and have this conversation with me and respecting me enough to tell me that truth.
Awesome.
So All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury. And then, there are so many. The Land of the Cranes by Aida Salazar. It's actually a middle grade novel, but it's another book about migrant children. And this one, she tells a story from a girl named Betita who's in a detention center. And I just feel like it is such a beautiful, hopeful, honest book. So definitely Land of the Cranes by Aida Salazar. And I think The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, because it's just such an amazing, truthful, honest, you know, so many words for it. It's just a book that when I read it, I was like, wow, that the poetry in it, you know, the characters, the things that she talks about, the expressions, the way the characters are able to express themselves. I just thought that was a really powerful novel. So those are the ones that come up right off the top of my head, but there are so many more. So.
Fabulous choices. Acevedo's voice is so strong in that book. Thanks to Michelle, I had the pleasure of seeing Elizabeth at Fame, and she read her poem Ode to a Rat, which
Yes, I was there.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, then I didn't get a chance to meet you. But students, if you have not seen Elizabeth Acevedo read her poem Ode to a Rat, YouTube it. It is so powerful and beautiful. So,
and you know, the way that she reads it, I mean, it's just, come on. It's amazing. Yes.
I have actually listened to all of her books on audiobook, and she narrates them all.
Oh, wow.
It's
amazing. It's like a double,
incredible.
Yes,
it's a double voice.
Yes.
All right. So you are an Orlando local.
Yes.
So I am going to challenge you and Michelle. Today, we are going to play True or False Orlando. We're going to see how well you and Michelle know some fine trivia about Orlando. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Michelle has not heard these questions either, so you can both answer. And no scoring, so no winners, right? All right. So the first question is, Gatorland was the first theme park to open in Orlando. Is that true or false?
True.
I say false because it's in Kissimmee.
Okay, Michelle says false.
Well, see, she's got a good point.
Okay,
there.
well, all right.
in
Orlando,
Central...
Kissimmee area. So don't base your answer off of that. I'm not trying to trick you.
Okay.
I'm going to say true.
Okay.
And I actually still say false because I think Cypress Gardens was the first one.
Oh, okay. Well, according to what I read, Gatorland was the first theme park to open in the Orlando area because it opened in 1949, 20 years before Disney.
Wow.
So I think Cypress Gardens is not considered Orlando.
Okay.
It wasn't. It might be now because everybody's moving here, but it's all sort of meshing into one.
Cypress Gardens is going to find this video and be like, we don't like that Jonathan character.
Well, Cypress Gardens is no more anyway. It's Legoland.
Perfect.
It's all,
That's right.
it's defunct.
All right. Next question. Former Orlando resident Shaquille O'Neal wears a size 16 shoe. True or false?
True.
Michelle?
I say true also.
It's false. He wears a size 17.
Oh.
That's like 2 of my feet.
It's
Yeah.
very large.
Yes.
Where does he find them? I'm sure he
I'm
does.
sure yes, is specially made.
I'm sure everything he wears is bespoke and beautiful, but all right, next question. Mr. Rogers wrote the song Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood while attending Rollins College.
That is true.
I know that he attended. Did he write it there?
Ooh. Oh, you have a very good point.
I'm going to say true.
I'm going to stick with true as well.
You are both correct. It was actually his senior thesis project.
Oh, wow.
How about
That's
that?
so beautiful. I
It
love that.
is.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
beautiful. All right, next question. Former Beatle Ringo Starr is a resident of Orlando. True or false?
False.
False.
You're both correct.
Yeah.
But Paul McCartney has a condo in Winter Park and he likes eating at Briar Patch.
Really?
I
I
can't
love
blame
this trivia
him.
that Jonathan knows, you know.
I know.
It's like,
He's a
wait.
wealth of knowledge.
I looked this up. It's on Twitter. People were like, Paul McCartney's at Briar Patch. So to be fair,
Who does
if
he
you
go
had-
there with?
Not me. We could be on Fort Belly Waffles together because I love that place.
Yes.
All right, here's our last one. Orlando City Hall was blown up for the movie Lethal Weapon 3. True or false?
I'm going to say true because we had MGM around that time. So maybe. And then, but I don't remember when we got our new one. I'm going to say true.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with that because I'm going to trust Jenny. And yeah, that's what I'm going with.
You're both correct. The city needed to demolish the building and they decided to offset the cost by selling the film rights of the demolition.
Wow. Yeah, we are
Awesome.
good Orlando
Yes.
residents. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for making time for us, Jenny.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me. It really means so much to me. You know, Florida residents and everything, you know, it just feels so warm and cozy and I love it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And for our students, if you have not picked up Jenny's book, oh no, my green screen is getting in the way. We are not from here. Let me tell you, this is an emotional journey. It is an unforgettable book. It will be a book that you read and then years later someone will mention and you'll be like, oh my gosh, yes. In the way that like Where the Red Fern Grows, if you read that as a kid and you're like, what a good cry, and you never forget it. That's the level this book is on. It's an amazing story. It's really well written, just unbelievably beautiful and unforgettable. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for those kind words and for having
Well,
me.
they're
Thank you.
honest. So
Thank you.
all right. Bye-bye, Jenny.